This video will work through problem 3.6 of Gapenski's Healthcare Finance, 6th edition. 3.6 is a for-profit variation on 3.5. So as you work through this, a good idea would be to look at problem 3.5 again, make sure you understood it. So with 3.6, again, we're going to start with the same assumptions. So we have revenues of our base case are 12 million. We have non-depreciation expenses of 75% of 12, which is 9. And I'm not going to do the 75% over and over. And then we have depreciation starting at 1.5 for part 1. Well, the implied part 1. And then from there, and then the difference here is we're going to have taxes. So these are our expenses. So revenue minus expenses would be net income if we were not for profit, but since this is a for-profit entity, we need to calculate the taxable operating income. So taxable income is going to be 12 minus 9 plus 1.5 or 10.5, right? Gives us 1.5 in taxable income, and then taxes are going to be 40%, right? So 40% of 1.5, 0.4 times 1.5 is 0.6. So our net income in this case would be 1.5 minus 0.6 or 0.9. Okay. So that's our base case. Now, that would be part A from 3.5. So that's our part A for 3.6. And what were Brandywine's net income? For 3.5, it was Brandywine, and 3.6, it's Mainline. Okay, so in this case, what's Brandywine's net income, total profit margin, and cash flow with the base case? Well, net income is 0.9. Remember that profit margin is net income divided by total revenue. In this case, total revenue is 12, and net income is 0.9. So 0.9 divided by 12 is 7.5%. Okay, and then finally, what's the cash flow? So the cash flow is equal to net income plus depreciation. So net income is 0.9, depreciation is 1.5. So we have cash flow of 2.4. Now we're going to do the variations where we change the amount of depreciation. So the first variation, we changed depreciation from 1.5 to 3. Okay, so now we have revenue of 12, non-depreciation of 9, depreciation of 3, taxable income is 0, so taxes are 0. And so net income is 0. Okay. Profit margin then is 0 over 12, which is 0. And cash flow becomes 0 plus 3, or 3. Now notice in 3.5, cash flows were always the same. What's happening now is depreciation is creating what's known as a tax shield for the earnings. So even though net income shows it's 0, in fact, the depreciation lowers the taxable amount of income for the organization, which saves their taxes. And then therefore, even though the net income is lower, the actual resources available to the organization are higher because the organization didn't pay any taxes. All right, and then the second case where we pay half as much in terms of or depreciation, we have revenues of 12, non-depreciation expenses of 9, depreciation of 0.75. So we have taxable income or operating income, depending on how you want to say it. So that is 9.75. So we have taxable income of 2.25. Taxes are going to be at 40%. So 40% of 2.25 is 0.9. So therefore, net income is 1.35. Okay, and then with a net income of 1.35, the profit margin is 1.35 divided by 12, 11.25%, and the cash flow is the net income 1.35 plus the depreciation 0.75 gives us 1.35 plus 0.75, 2.1. So we had 3 different cash flows as a result of different kinds of depreciation. We had in the base case where we paid 1.5 in depreciation, we had 2.4 million in profit, in cash flow. When we increased the depreciation to 3, we had a cash flow of 3. And when we decreased depreciation to 0.75, we had cash flow of 2.1. So as you can see, when we had the highest depreciation, we were able to shield the most earnings from taxes and as a result had the highest cash flow. When we had the middle amount of depreciation, we had the middle amount of cash flow. And when we had the least amount of depreciation, we had the least amount of cash flow. So even though net income was higher when we had lower depreciation, we actually wind up with lower cash flow, so fewer resources actually available to the organization. So net income, kind of the takeaway here is cash flow is, you could say cash flow is king. It's really important to recognize that net income doesn't tell the whole story by itself.